Hey guys, this is Shreyas and welcome back to another video. So today we are going to discuss more about the Google camera. If you remember and if you have watched my review of the Pixel 4a, you would know that I didn't cover much about the camera, but I said that I'll make a dedicated video about the same, and this is it. If you haven't checked that review, I will link it in the cards above and in the description below. You should definitely check it out before you spill your money on this particular phone. So with that, this is Shreyas and let's see what the Google camera has to offer in the Pixel 4a. Camera aside, I want to talk about the software in the camera first. So the camera software is relatively very simple, I felt. Few camera features are kind of hidden away, so if you already have the Pixel 4a, I would recommend a few settings first. So if you want to capture in RAW, there is a setting now, but you have to go into the setting, go to advanced, and then you can see the RAW plus JPEG control over there. And you can see a RAW folder being created there as well. Another thing I like to turn on is framing hints because it really helps at times. Also the video stabilization, turn it on because it will use both OIS and EIS when you turn that on. So another cool feature over here is you can see that when I expose for a dark part, we get two sliders over here. One is obviously the overall exposure control. We have another slider over here which actually helps with the shadow control only. As you can see, the bright parts don't really change. It only affects the shadow parts, so you can do this and check out the results real time. Let's just look into few more things which the Google camera offers. Now, few people who have used GCam on other Android phones in the past had this confusion on Twitter somewhere that there is no HDR control and there is no astrophotography mode. Google does it by itself. It detects when it needs to do what. For example, HDR is happening all the time. Even you cannot select the number of frames as you can do on some other GCam ports for other phones. Another thing about astrophotography, there is no manual toggle. It won't let you do astrophotography handheld. But as soon as you put the phone to night side and place it on a tripod, it turns astrophotography on in a couple of seconds. So that's how it works out if you have this confusion. Moving on, there are some neat features like the framing hints. So when you're framing a particular subject, it will show you the degree of tilt of the phone and you can adjust it to bring it to 0 degree if you want a straight shot, and that is what it helps out in. Few other things, it automatically detects a lot of stuff and the Google Lens is baked in as well and it really helps out a lot. Few other things is like it detects documents automatically and does a special scan like feature in the particular app. You can even copy text directly from there and use it somewhere else. There are some neat features in the Google Photos as well. I posted these multiple times on Twitter because I was really fascinated by it. Yeah, these are portrait light where you can actually make an artificial source of light and move it around, change the intensity of it to change the lighting condition of that particular picture. It really surprised me how well it works. It really captures the shadows and the highlights very well according to where you place the light source. So these are some software benefits of using the Google camera. Now coming to the modes and how they turn out, in terms of normal sheer photography, I feel this is the best camera you can get under 30 or 32,000. That's it. Like the main problem you might face is the colors, and it's not about it being oversaturated or something. Yes, it is slightly saturated, but it is something that is pleasing usually to the human eye, but not overly saturated like I have seen in a lot of Xiaomi or Realme phones. And even in OnePlus, the reds are over boosted sometimes, which looks really disgusting. The greens are very faint sometimes in my OnePlus phone. So that is one major difference I saw. The colors are captured very well and saturated slightly to make it look a bit more attractive. So I'm cool with that. The next thing is the only thing that can matter in terms of colors is the white balance. Sometimes I have seen in nighttime shots you can take in the normal camera mode as well, but when you turn into night sight mode, usually the color temperature shifts a bit to the cooler side, which I found a bit weird because if the normal camera mode is capturing something, night sight should not change the color temperature. It can change the details, etc. But coming to the portrait mode, it automatically zooms in a bit around 1.5 to 2 times of zoom. Usually the portrait mode is good, but it's not flawless. Edge detection is not always great, but you can decrease the blur in the Google Photos app and it kind of makes up for it, giving it a slight blur and not really showing that the edge detection is bad. When you have tricky subjects like with my hair and stuff like that, sometimes Google does mess up that. Here is another example where I have taken this goose's picture, and you can see around the neck the edge detection is not perfect, but at times this edge detection is really spot on. Like you can see in this shot of the cat, it was moving towards me in a very fast pace, but first of all it could freeze the motion and apply portrait mode to it, and you can see the gradual blur from the head of the cat till the tail. It's not something that it's cut out as a whole and the rest is just blurred. It was really nicely implemented, and this is something that really caught my eye, but this is not 100% of the time. That is the only catch over here. 80 to 90% of the time this does a phenomenal job, and for a 30,000 phone, I am really happy about the portrait mode. Another thing which I saw that people were not happy with the selfies of these or the portrait mode shot of the Pixel 4a. There is one setting when you move into the portrait mode where you get a face retouching option. If you want more details, you can turn that off, which will really make a lot of skin detail come out. There is another natural and there is a proper smoothened mode. Another thing I want to talk about is in terms of the Google camera on the Pixel 5 and the 4a 5G. On that you have something called as Google Camera version 8. Those have some video options like cinematic pan, etc. Apparently it's coming down to the older Pixel phones as well, and Pixel 4 has already gotten it, but I'm not sure if the Pixel 4a will be getting it. I'll be actually hoping that comes down because there are good video features in that which I would really like to test out. Talking about video features, here are some rare and front-facing video samples of the Google Pixel 4a, so be a judge of it yourself. Alright, so here's 1080p 30fps footage from the rear camera of the Pixel 4a. The dynamic range seems okay, but yeah, obviously not the greatest. You can make a judgment of the audio quality as well. One thing I would like to specify is when you switch from the camera mode to the video mode, it automatically crops in a bit, no matter if you're in FHD or in 4K. So that's something you should probably keep in mind. Speaking of which, this is the front facing video and I feel it's great. The stabilization is a bit off, but yeah, obviously it only has electronic stabilization. I feel the dynamic range is pretty good. Obviously the sky is getting blown out a bit, that is kind of understandable, but in terms of the colors I feel it's great. Now the main thing about the 4a I felt was the night side. Cameras in this price range and even some flagships do not have that good a nighttime camera, but in the Pixel 4a the night side really elevates the camera experience in my opinion. You can see these shots, these were taken in pitch darkness with only the light of the aquarium, and you can see how crisp they came out even though the subjects were moving. Although night side takes around 2 to 3 seconds to get captured, but it takes a single frame first and does all the work around it after it's taken. It's not that it captures the movement all the time. Yes, obviously if there is a very fast moving object, you will get a certain blur to it, but I think the trade-off is understandable. The next thing that gets added onto this night side is astrophotography. Now unfortunately it has been really cloudy and there's a lot of light pollution around where I stay, but these are the pictures I could capture. If you expose just for the sky, it took around 4 minutes for each exposure. But if you can see over here, this kind of a night cityscape kind of a picture I took during Diwali night where it was fairly dark. It took around 1 to 1.5 minutes per shot which I took over here. So it kind of depends on the lighting condition, but as per me the longest exposure I got was for 4 minutes, and trust me, that wait is worth it. You can see the results for yourself, and I was really mind blown that given such poor sky conditions and even light pollution around me, it could capture so much detail using a 12 megapixel camera sensor. So I guess that's it. That's the conclusion about the Pixel 4a. The hardware does not matter as much as the software. We even get 108 megapixel cameras and 48 megapixel and 64 megapixel cameras. Apart from the depth of field, I feel like nothing else is really impacted by this particular sensor. Keeping that aside, coming to the 4a and its price tag, I feel the camera is very much worth it, and this is an experience you should definitely buy for. So that's been it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.